Crypto Cats, my name is Tom, I am the crypto investor, and it's time for our weekly market roundup. As ever, we start with the top 100 tokens in crypto, and you can see that we are green. It's beautiful. Remember this? We have Ethereum up 18% on the week, putting its head just above $3,000. Bitcoin up 9.8% at 41,500, and many of the layer ones looking nice as well. Solana narrowly escaping a terrible week, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Up 19%, Polkadot up 16%. You have this is missed by the bubbles. Juno up 83%. This is interesting L1 that's now just got into the top 100s. And even tokens like Tezos up 30%. They've just sponsored Man United Football Club. I think Polkadot are sponsoring Barcelona as well. Metaverse continuing to look pretty strong as well. Let's have a look at those bubbles. All right. So, really, I mean, one standout one is probably this one, Gala. You can't see the G. That's Gala. They are up 63%. I was just looking at this on a chart. I had an alert set when it broke this downward move. You saw it coming down. It started to make a nice floor here, and then bam, really nice breakout for Gala. Hard work starts now, whether it can sustain this move, but it's a quality token from all accounts, up 77% in the last 2 days there after that quite steep decline. Okay, it is still down 60% since we began that move downwards in November, as many tokens are, but showing some of the stronger grassroots of recovery compared to many of the other tokens. Some meme coin down 33%. Not too much surprise there. Looking at the burn, ultrasound.money has a new feature which is quite cool to share with you. So we can go to burn category and we can look in the last 7 days, and we can see that it shows what is burning Ethereum, what activity is leading to that burn. And you can see that NFTs account for 43% of all of the ETH burnt. So a very important part of the infrastructure, really. And actually, we've seen a drop in activity for NFTs on the likes of Solana and Ethereum, continuing to stamp its authority as the place for NFTs. And we'll talk a bit more about NFTs shortly. Looking at the total TVL for many of the L1s, you can see that most of them are up this week. Phantom, after its huge month up 51%, has dropped a little bit this week, but most adding around 10% in line with the movements we've seen in the market versus the US dollar. Ethereum still with its 61% dominance, and kind of really since that drop we saw in November has kind of stabilized in its total dominance. Doesn't seem to be declining too much more. All right, so let's start with macro. So this week we have the CPI index once more, so we're going to find out more about inflation in the US. It's expected to be 7.2%. It is important we know about this because macro headwinds have a big impact on crypto these days, as more and more of the large money in this space is controlled by the TradFi world. If we do get an inflation print higher than 7.2%, this means interest rates will have to be increased sooner. The bond buybacks will be tapered faster, and so all these things would be headwinds. So important data point on Thursday. Let's see what happens. Tune in next week to find out. And by the way, Crypto Cats, if you do like the content, and press the like button, please. It is much appreciated. All right. What we got? Oh, that was me looking at Juno. Okay, so India had a interesting week in crypto. You know, they had talked about outlawing and banning crypto entirely, and they've now done two things. They've said, right, actually, we're going to tax all crypto by 30%, and at the same time, we're going to implement a digital rupee, a central bank digital currency, CBDC, which basically is a fairly draconian way of saying, it's our way or the highway. You can use our incumbent currency within the country and you won't have to pay any tax. Or if you want to use these outside of cryptocurrencies, then you're going to have to pay 30% tax. And this is a strategy that many people have feared to be something that other governments could adopt to really ostracize this crypto space if they put these taxes on it. So again, as I always say, if you squeeze a balloon, the air will pop up somewhere else. And so many other nations can do the opposite. And, El Salvador would be a classic example. I'm not saying let's all move to El Salvador to avoid our crypto tax, but Portugal's another country that has no tax currently on crypto. Germany has fairly liberal laws on crypto tax, as far as I understand. And so, sure, you can ostracize the crypto community in your country, but it's going to allow other countries to have the opportunity to benefit from what could easily be. It's like trying to outlaw the rise of internet companies in the year 2000. It's generally not going to be a great move for you, but interesting to see this. I find the rise of central bank digital currencies fascinating. We'll talk a bit more about that in the US central bank digital currency shortly. Solana. So they have a bridge called Wormhole. Bridges are notoriously difficult to stop being hacked. It got hacked to the tune of $300 million. That's a big bank heist. And Solana was bleeding hard and looking like it was heading down to $50. However, I don't understand quite how they found the capital, but Jump Crypto worked with other quant trading firms and basically plugged this hole. They came up with $300 million and replaced 120,000 ETH, which had been stolen in this exploit, and steadied the ship. So that's quite extraordinary to see that. But bridges continue to be very vulnerable. Here's something I just found today, which I thought was really cool. This is called apeboard.finance. If you're familiar with zapper.fi, this is kind of like that. So Zapper.fi is like you put your ETH address in there and it just scours the blockchain to aggregate all of the different, for example, DeFi projects you might be using, and you can see a dashboard of one clear place where all of your activity is. I've found stuff that I'd lost before previously on different chains, so it's a very useful way of kind of keeping track of everything that's going on. What 8board does that I didn't know is that you can do this for other blockchains. So you can create a profile here, add in lots of different blockchains, and then you can go to your Terra Luna, to your Solana, to your Ethereum, to Avalanche blockchains, and see all of your different activity and different assets under one roof. So it's pretty cool, pretty powerful. I liked it. 8board.finance, link below. It's not a sponsor or anything. I'm just sharing what I find cool. Obviously, the markets have had a really nice bounce this week, but the signal this month has been the same as ever before. Price is one thing, but signal is what is going on when it comes to investment rounds, shout outs from different high-profile people such as Tim Cook, various companies endorsing crypto. The list goes on. It's been an incredible Rio de Janeiro, a mayor moving 1% of their treasury into Bitcoin. Many of the things which we talk about in these Sunday roundups, all these NFT projects. It's been an incredible week for crypto, but just not really. Month for crypto, but just not a very good month for price action. But we're not looking at our feet. We're looking at the horizon, and these are all data points on the horizon. So this is why we dollar cost average, we hold long, and we feel confident in the growth of this space. What is this, So Ryan Alias was on the Bankless podcast this week, and he was sharing his discounted cash flow valuation for Ethereum. He is classic TradFi, does deep due diligence into pricing businesses based on fair value of future earnings and such, and he did this really in-depth calculation to give us some beautiful hopium prices for ETH. One of the things I like as well is, like, normally when they consider the total profit that's coming in for a business, they also consider the operating costs, and of course Ethereum has zero operating costs, so it's 100% profit margins, and based on the revenues that it's making today, ETH has a PE ratio of 21.9, so that's when you take the market cap and divide it by the earnings. And the smaller the number, the cheaper the company is. And if you compare that to a PE ratio of typical companies out there, that's the size. That's a PE ratio for a company that's not really growing. That's like tobacco companies or oil companies. These are companies that you expect to see limited growth in the next decade or so because they're effectively dying industries. It has a PE ratio that matches those, rather than a PE ratio of extremely fast tech companies Like Tesla, for example, has a PE ratio, I think of around 200 or so. It says 300. It's just under 200 or so. So if we gave Ethereum a PE ratio based on a fast-growing tech company, then instead of $3,000 today, we should actually have a valuation of more like $33,000. And the reason I think we don't, obviously, is because there is still concerns, of course, about what governments will do in the form of regulation. There's obviously some concerns about other layer ones, which could come up and take dominance away from ETH. Both of those, I don't feel. I mean, they are certainly attack vectors, but it still just tells us that ETH is it's still an undervalued asset when you consider its cash flow, and the fact that its supply also will start to be burnt as well. So anyway, just some sweet little hopium to pop in the pipe there. Visa has done record transactions of $2 billion on its CryptoLinks card. So if you've got a Crypto.com card or BlockFi or Gemini and such, they're starting to see real traction, and Visa loves this. Every transaction pays them bunts. So it's just good for, again, if we need lobbying in this space, well, Visa might even, rather than seeing it as a threat, be a company that would actually look to protect this industry. They're benefiting from it, and adoption is real. I was mentioning CBDCs and the Fed. So this is the Fed putting out a paper about a digital dollar. And what's interesting in here is the amount of time they talk about external oracles. If you're not familiar with external oracles, think Chainlink. Chainlink really is the dominant, almost has a monopoly on the oracle space. It's like lookup. It's like the infrastructure within the crypto space. And so if you do think we're moving towards a world where the likes of India are adopting CBDCs next year, that's 1.2 billion people. That's nearly 15% of the global population, which they say they're doing. Then maybe Chainlink is a really good piece of infrastructure to be holding. I've personally been increasing my Chainlink position this year substantially because, if we were to slip into a bear market, it's been one of the best performers in sideways and bear markets. It was the best performer over 2018, 2019. And they are changing their protocol to have staking and rewards as it matures. And so just another nice kind of a bit of alpha to realize the potential of Chainlink, in my humble opinion. Not financial advice, just a guy on the internet, etc., etc. Infura, which is the centralized RPC relay feature for many blockchains such as Ethereum. It's what Pocket effectively provides a decentralized option to. If you haven't watched my videos shilling Pocket, then please do. It went down this week, which is exactly why protocols like Pocket are what they're designed to mitigate. So MetaMask wasn't working on Infura nodes, for example. So just an exact reason. I mean, this should really help the story behind Pocket, who are presenting next week at ETH Denver. Since I've shilled it, it's actually had really pretty crappy price performance since it went out on exchanges. But I just wanted to share, when you look at the price of Pocket, which has crept up in the last week or so, it's important to value it by its market cap rather than the token price, because every month with inflation for the next probably 6 months, 12 months or so, you get 20% inflation new Pocket created per month. And so what we're really looking at is the market cap rather than the token price, which has come up really nicely in the last week or so. But yeah, just to make you aware of that, if you are a fellow Pocket holder as myself, it represents nearly 20% of my portfolio, and I am just stacking and compounding my Pocket position very happily, as I believe this has a very bright future and is still under $1 billion market cap, ranked at 100. All right. So, Mr. Bieber, Justin Bieber, he bought a Bored Ape last week, and I believe he's just bought a second Bored Ape. He's dropped like $1.5 million now on these, and so obviously that's shot the price of Bored Apes up. I think the floor is like 120 ETH or something ridiculous, and it's quite interesting to see that this week the search volume on Google for NFTs overtook the search volume of crypto. So, yeah. I mean, it's a very excellent way for crypto onboarding. People get into NFTs and then that's their gateway drug to this whole interesting space. And it's interesting to see where the searches are coming from. It's actually, Taiwan, Japan, South Korea. So you can see big Asian influence in the search for NFTs. And that's also, interestingly, fairly represented by this NFT project Azuki's. I think they're already up to 9 ETH, so hold your horses if you're thinking of getting one. I mean, they could easily be the next Bored Apes up to 100 ETH. You just don't know. It's very hard in the NFT space to odds it. But they just broke into the top 10, and these are like quite cool manga. Let's look at it for you right now. And just think how huge the manga. Here we go, shy of 10 ETH, and I bet they go further. I'm not buying into them. I'm too scared. But yeah, just think at how big the manga space market is within Southeast Asia. So anyway, interesting to see. All right, let's jump into the charts, shall we, crypto cats? So first of all, I just want to start with the Nasdaq. As I mentioned, obviously the TradFi markets have big impact in the markets right now, and the Nasdaq obviously lost its nice channel 3 weeks ago now. Had a really decent hammer and looked to be recovering this week. Was up quite substantially and gave up its gains in the middle of the week. We do have there was some selling into the close, which is always a slightly bearish sign. If you look at it on the 5-minute charts, we did get that selling just before the close. This is after the close. So it's very hard to know, but we do have kind of 2 hammers in a row. Buyers are coming back into the markets. Another big week in the markets, but if you look at this based on these last 2 weeks, you could kind of say this is a big old doji. Doji is like an indecisive candle. It's when you have these long wicks and the price stops in the middle. So you got long wick, and price in the middle. So based on this, we've got 10% volatility movement over 2 weeks, which is very big for the stock market, and it doesn't know which direction to go. So it's kind of still stuck in the middle. So again, inflation, very important data. Another thing to keep your eye on is the DXY. This is the US dollar versus a basket of major currencies. If you haven't heard of the DXY, it just tells us the relative strength of the dollar versus other currencies. And it is certainly in this upward channel, but this week it did have quite an aggressive sell-off and an engulfing candle, which is not a very strong sign. And so that a rising DXY, if you will, a rising dollar is a headwind, obviously, for cryptocurrencies because they're valued typically in dollars, unless you're obviously valuing your Bitcoin in ETH or vice versa. But we did see the dollar sell off this week, so it'd be interesting to see what happens here. I don't think it's about to break down. We're still firmly in this channel. Maybe we move sideways for a bit. It just got a little ahead of itself, but something to keep an eye on there as well. All right, crypto. You're here for crypto, for God's sake. So it's been a good week, hasn't it? If we look at Bitcoin on the daily chart, we've broken, it's the first point we've scored for the bulls here, we've broken this downward trend. We have been hemorrhaging, really, slowly, painfully, for 90 days, and that 90-day downward trend looks to be broken. We've also got above 41,000, which was our first line in the sand to recapture. We need to close above there, and we've still got half a day or so to go today. Be interesting to see how today plays out. Next line in the sand is 42,000, which is another fairly important resistance, previous support line that is now obviously turned resistance. So we'll see how we get on there. But what we're doing now is coiling below there. So what I'd hope to see is this kind of bull flag where we go back sideways a little bit and then we break up. Maybe we hit our head on this trend line. Otherwise, for me, around 46,000 is the next big line in the sand for Bitcoin there. But overall, we haven't recaptured our upward trend line. We're looking a lot closer to doing so. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Long term, I'm permeable, you know I am. But if you look at when we had that sell-off in May, and we had quite a similar pattern come back up. In fact, we can clone this. And if we just clone this, oh come on, live demonstrations. If we clone this, okay, I think I've cloned it. There we go. If you clone this, you with me? You can see that, we had a very, very similar thing play out here where we came back up. I don't know how well you can see that. In fact, there you go. And then obviously we then continued our bleed down before recovering. So a lot of people are still scared that this is a relief rally. It still has work to do to prove itself. We're at that kind of inflection point right now, which it's identical to this really. So this week is another critical week. I think if we don't see runaway inflation, if we don't see negative rhetoric coming out of the Fed, then we have a really good chance of recapturing this and continuing our upward trend. Right now we're right at the top of the weekly session, which is another good sign. If we can close up at the top of this session, that would be really nice to see. Looking at Ethereum, a little bit healthier than Bitcoin. It's regained that upward trend line, which is really nice to see. Again, if we look at this on the daily chart, we did have a kind of more aggressive downward trajectory that we were in, which I've since deleted. We recaptured that at this point here, which is also the same time we broke back above this upward trend line, this major trend line, which we've had in play really for the last nearly couple of years. And again, just the same as Bitcoin, we need it to close up here. As long as we close above this trend line, that would be a really good sign for Ethereum, in my opinion. And for me, if you stick on the 200-day moving average, which we've only been below for 11 days in the last nearly 2 years, and we've obviously been below it for these past 30 days. But what we need to do is get back above that. And that's, for me, the big resistance line. It's at 3,500. It represents this downward trend line here and getting back above this multi-day upward trend line. So that's where my attention is, 3,500 for ETH. And get it back above there. I mean, of course, don't forget, this is a huge year for Ethereum. We have the merge happening in about 3 to 4 months' time. There's obviously that executional risk that some people are scared of. I think I'm pretty confident in the Ethereum team for pulling it off. And once that happens, we could really, if we get back above 4,000, then I still don't think 10,000 over the next 12 months is particularly out of the question. So, looking at the ETH Bitcoin ratio, as I said last week, this was a lovely buy signal, and we've had a pretty decent jump on the back of that. It's just come back a little bit on movement that we've seen with Bitcoin, but overall, again, I think we just are probably going to do something like this and then break out. So that's how I see that going, but ratio looking pretty nice there. DeFi up for the week versus US dollar, but not setting the world on fire. Metaverse versus Ethereum continuing to hold this upward trend line, but not looking as convincing as it has been. DeFi versus Ethereum, still one of the most depressing charts in crypto. Terra Luna hasn't quite recaptured its upward trend line. Still work to be done there, but not a bad bounce. In the Discord, if you are not, I'll put a link for the Discord group that I participate in with Lifestyle Lab. If you're not part of that, you can try it out for $1 for 30 days and see if it tickles your pickle. Link below, and I'm very active in that Discord and helping people in the crypto space. So I put out a buy signal on on Luna at $42, which wasn't bad. Looking at Solana, so as I said, Solana with its wormhole hack was looking very vulnerable indeed, but they plugged the hole with $300 million and came to the rescue. And again, it's not out of the woods. Really, Solana has lost a lot of its upward momentum. And if you think of it from a PE ratio compared to Ethereum, it's still quite an expensive L1. But yeah, it's beginning its upward road to recovery a little bit there. But still plenty of work to be done. All right, I think that is it for now, Crypto Cats. Please do press like if you like the content. Please do comment. I like reading your comments. You're all pretty kind, aren't you? And that's it. I'll see you probably during the week with some more content. Until then, happy investing, and I'll speak to you soon. All the best.